This is Oak Lawn Cemetery here in Tulsa, where it was long believed that there were 18 black men from the Tulsa Riot who were killed, who were buried here, but no one could ever find their bodies. The people who are buried here one day walked out of their home, disappeared, and were never seen again.
Brenda Alford is a daughter of Tulsa and has lived with this mystery her whole life.
I am the granddaughter of Black Wall Street entrepreneurs and race massacre survivors, James and Vassador Nails Sr. They, along with my great-uncle Henry Nails, were the proud owners of the Nails Brothers Shoe Shop and Record Shop that was located at 121 North Greenwood Avenue.
She says she remembers her grandparents and their friends whispering about the people who disappeared and were never found.
Family members would come to town to visit. Usually we would pass by Oak Lawn Cemetery, and the comment would always be made, "You know they're still over there." And everyone in the car would agree.
What happened here 100 years ago is only becoming clear today. The black families who lived in the Greenwood neighborhood were under attack. It was America's racism on full display. A mob of white neighbors were here on the black side of town, shooting proud black families dead.
Airplanes above us, the bullets raining down all around us.
And somehow, over the many years, both the white mob and their black victims, seen here with the guns at their backs, kept the massacre a secret. But times have changed.
Wall Street! Our street!
The truth-telling in the streets that took off with the murder of George Floyd has people now asking, how do you return to the black families of Tulsa what racism stole so long ago?
No justice, no peace!
The Greenwood neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma was the pride and joy of America's former slaves in 1921. The shops and businesses did so well, they called it Black Wall Street. But there was resentment living on the other side of the railroad tracks that divided the city. In the white neighborhoods, they liked to call Greenwood Little Africa. The evening of May 30th was the beginning of the White Lash. That's when Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old black shoe shiner, needed to use the so-called colored restroom downtown. It was on the top floor of the Drexel building, and a young white woman named Sarah Page was in charge of the elevator.
We think as Dick walked on the elevator, he tripped. He automatically threw his hands out to break his fall, that he might have hooked his hand on Sarah Page's dress, that it tore, she screamed, and he ran out of the elevator.
A white store clerk who heard her scream told police that Dick Rowland attacked her. They arrested him the next day.
The Tribune published an article the next day entitled "Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in an Elevator." The piece really had its desired impact in that it riled up white men in South Tulsa.
The word across town was that they were going to lynch this man. At the courthouse, the white men with guns were soon met by a much smaller group of black men with guns. And then someone's gun went off. Before it was all over, the racists would loot and burn Black Wall Street.
All I could see was black rolling smoke down south and the people going north. The crowd was just the whole breadth of the railroad track.
The law, they never held anyone responsible for killing as many as 300 black Americans. These painful images of burned black bodies were turned into postcards and were shared by white families. This one celebrates, quote, running the Negro out of Tulsa. 30 blocks of black homes and black excellence were burned to the ground in just 16 hours. What's even more difficult to understand is why the black Americans who were victimized in all this, who stayed and rebuilt, made the decision to keep quiet about what happened.
My name is L. Joy McConaughey, and that's J-O-I. I am the granddaughter of L. Doris McConaughey, who is more famous as being a survivor of the Tulsa Race Riot. They kept that silence to live.
The people who survived this massacre had to live with the very people who burned down their homes.
Right.
Who executed members of their family.
Absolutely.
For very different reasons, many of the white people in Tulsa also helped keep the massacre buried in the fog of aging memories.
It was entirely deliberate, and as we have unearthed archival information, the recurring theme that you see in that is shame and embarrassment.
G.T. Bynum is the mayor of Tulsa today.
I grew up here in Tulsa. My family's been here since the 1870s, and I first heard about the race massacre in 2001 or 2.
People grew up here not learning about this in schools. And in 2019, state educators tried to include the history in public school curriculums. But Oklahoma's governor recently signed new legislation that prevents educators from teaching history that could make any student feel guilty about their race. It becomes law on July 1st, and it doesn't make it any easier to tell the story about the massacre.
We can and should teach this history without labeling a young child as an oppressor.
Mayor Bynum is now promising to do his part to help right the old wrongs. But he's stopping short of saying that the city needs to pay these families for their losses.
I do not believe that citizens who live in Tulsa today should be monetarily punished through their taxes for something that people did 100 years ago.
Viola Fletcher is 107 years old and the oldest living survivor of the massacre.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home.
Last week, she and 2 other survivors told Congress that they support efforts that would make it easier for the victims to be paid reparations.
No one cared about us for almost 100 years. We and our history have been forgotten, washed away. This Congress must recognize us and our history. For Black America, for the white Americans, and for all Americans.
The mayor says he wants to help these families another way, by leading the search for the missing victims. In October of 2020, the city's bulldozers uncovered the truth. They found at least a dozen missing bodies in this one corner of a city cemetery, and they are still searching for more.
This is a murder investigation. One of the most basic things that any city government should offer its citizens is that if you're murdered, we will do everything we can to try and find out what happened to you, where your remains are, and who did it to you.
There's a strong feeling here that the estimated hundreds of millions of dollars in generational wealth that was lost needs to be replaced, and that it's not enough to tell the stories of the survivors and families with a new history center that's going up called Greenwood Rising.
Anything that's 100 years is big money, as you can see. But none of this money benefits me. And the bottom line is, I mean, if you want to go bottom line.
Yeah, what is it?
Then the bottom line is my great-grandparents who built Wall Street, they didn't get any money. My grandmother, who's in the Smithsonian Institute, with her story, she didn't get any money. I didn't get any money. So 100 years, I don't want to beg anybody for anything.
Who do you think should pay for reparations in this instance?
I start with the city and the state. I start with the 2 living survivors that we know of right in Oklahoma. I would start with them before they died.
What do you say to those people who will say, well, you know, I shouldn't have to pay for my father's sins? This wasn't
sins
now.
of the father. I understand.
This was back then. People of today, why should they have to answer for yesterday? Is it fair?
Because my son will not have the equal opportunity today that should have been afforded my grandparents then.
The surviving families say it's not just about money. They could use a program that helps Black businesses afford to stay in the neighborhood, or even vocational training for the young people here, so they too can help build the new history center.
You don't like the word reparations?
No, sir.
You prefer the word?
Love offering.
Love offering.
Have a love offering.
What is it you want me to not forget to tell America when we do this?
That this is not just ancient history, you know, something so far back across the generations that you can't feel and touch the people. It's difficult to have lived through that. It's hard now.
Our thanks to Steve Osinsami. The ABC News documentary Tulsa's Buried Truth is now streaming on Hulu.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.